Hey everyone, this is Miranda with the Valuable Voices podcast. I'm really excited for you guys to hear from my friend Renee today. Thanks for being on.
Thank you for having me. I love it.
So we met in a mentorship program online. I've not met her in person yet, but I'm going to get to Nashville or she's going to come here and I'm going to squeeze her. But she's been a huge inspiration. She's a powerhouse. I love her faith. She's just helped me kind of walk through life. And Renee, I just kind of want to hear your story about kind of where you've been with
Yeah.
Hope Clinic for so long, and now you're doing your own thing. And I just feel like things are falling into place for you. So yeah, kind of tell us your background and what got you
Yeah.
started today.
I'm excited to kind of share my story and hope that it moves and inspires many and also maybe teach you what not to do. I take life a little bit sometimes the wrong way and the long way, and that's how I learn my best stuff. So I would say first and foremost, if anybody is hearing this, no matter how old you are, if you feel like you have fallen too many times, you have not. It will just make you a better human for the rest of the world. I grew up in upstate Connecticut, right outside of New York City. I always joke that if you kind of blend My Big Fat Greek Wedding and The Godfather, that describes my childhood. It was filled with a lot of passion, food, and yelling, and really great things and really unhealthy things. And I'm grateful for all of it. And it just gave me a very rich upbringing. And I was faced with a lot of diversity. I always joke, if you've seen West Side Story, which I'm glad it just kind of had a remake. Like my childhood, I was the Jets, man. Like I was with the crowd of like scrappy people. And so I think right from the get-go, I always learned how to tackle hard stuff and face it and not get flustered by it. And I'm so glad that my parents didn't really rescue me and they let me learn stuff the hard way. And I'm just so grateful for that. The other two other big things that really changed who I am is I grew up with an eye problem and I was in and out of the hospital from the age of 2 until I was 18. And, surgery back then was very traumatic. Doctors were not friendly. And when you kind of keep going to new doctors to find out what's wrong with you, you kind of think, okay, something's wrong with you. And so years later, I had to really unpack what that meant for my worthiness, my self-esteem, feeling broken. And, back then too, medical bills were really high and just how hard that was knowing the impact I was having on the family because of the mounting doctor bills. And so just really working through that definitely changed me. I've always said that what, the enemy meant for evil and trying to take away my eyesight, God used for good. I feel like I have a spidey spiritual vision. And so I'm really good at seeing what's not there in the natural. I'm really good at reading the room and sensing. After one surgery, I actually was bandaged shut for 3 months. So it really forced me to pick up smell, tone, sound, and other senses. And so I feel like instead of that being a negative part of my life, it really kind of mastered how I adapt to the world around me, which is why my preference is always face-to-face and live interactions with people.
Yeah.
I don't like being on the phone because I can't read the room, so to speak, as well. And so that really shaped me. And of course, because of that, I developed a really strong faith at a really young age. When you're in the hospital by yourself, because back then they didn't let parents stay, I was either going to be alone or find faith. And I'm grateful that my mom kind of put that in me. And so I developed a pretty strong faith at a very young, tender age, and it was pretty real to me. And so I feel like all of those things, like that scrappy Italian faith and what I went through really kind of shaped who I am. And then the other thing that super shaped me is in many ways, I know you might have a hard time believing this, but I was like the really quiet, nerdy book girl. Like I would be at a family reunion reading a 500-page book, even with my bad eyes. And like, I was not social butterfly. And my fifth grade teacher asked me to run for president of the school. And there was like some hot, popular kid running. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to beat Kevin Watt. And like, I still remember his name.
Of course.
And I was like, I've never done any public speaking. And I just am so grateful that she saw something in me that literally changed the course direction of my life and who I am today. So I got up in front of the whole school. I learned, I loved it, and I won, and I beat the popular hot kid. And like I look at me now, it's like when I look at trying out for cheerleading and becoming captain and head of a debate team and all of those things I started to do in high school and college, I really only did because of what she saw. And so I guess my encouragement in all of this is all those small moments or hard moments that you think aren't shaping you or you're not shaping somebody else, they really are. Unfortunately, she died of breast cancer before I had a chance to tell her what she meant to me.
Yeah.
And so I really just want to encourage all of us that make the most of the small moments, whether it's being super nice to somebody at Walgreens or the waitress that's kind of being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, love on her anyway. And like 20 years from now, your grace moment
Yeah.
might have been the thing that changed her life that day, and you'll never know it. And it's so
Right.
hard for us to not see the outcome of that. So I say all that as the precursor to, gosh, I just jumped out and left this big job with no direction. And how did she have the guts to do it? And it was all that
Wow.
was camping ground for this season of my life. And, as you were saying, I started out in the corporate world, and then I was in like retail, corporate office, and then I went in healthcare. So I was in the healthcare world. I always joke that people like Donald Trump do not scare me, because when you work in New York with doctors, you deal with the God complex every day.
Wow.
And you are used to people cutting you off and being abrupt and direct. And so I developed some really thick skin in healthcare. And then I went into full-time church ministry. My title was business administrator, kind of like executive pastor. And then I did equipping ministries. And I thought working for a church and leaving corporate America was going to be like just singing Kumbaya. I just thought we were going to praise Jesus all day long, never be mean to everybody, never sin or fall short. And like, I was so naive. And, I was like ghetto girl in a white waspy church. I had tattoos. I raised my hands when I praised. And I'm so glad the senior pastor like thought I was spunky and a spitfire, but I went through a lot of judgment from the frozen chosen at that Presbyterian church in New England. I was not like anything they had seen before. And it really taught me to not look at people's exterior and how much money they had before I made judgments from them, because I was really judged by really godly, amazing people.
Wow.
And so that really was like, wow, like for the first time in my life, I experienced shame, feeling poor, feeling inadequate. It was amazing that it was in the church community that I first experienced the most amount of judgment. And, I was such a codependent, such a Cody, that like I spun my wheels in the beginning trying to be and perform in who they wanted me to be. And then there were some senior people in the church, like I don't know if you remember McGraw-Hill, the big publishing company. So senior McGraw-Hill, Harold McGraw, was a member at the church. And he just gave me the best life lessons. And he was just like, you are smart, you are successful, don't let anybody walk all over you. Like, this man was like 100 years old, and he just spoke wisdom over me. And he was like, when people attack you, Renee, it says more about them and their insecurities than you. You don't be anything more than who God's called you to be. And I so needed that, because when God called me from Connecticut to Nashville, Tennessee, for personal reasons, but then I landed this job running Hope Clinic for Women, and it was a faith-based nonprofit in this little Nashville back then was, almost 20 years ago. was still pretty segregated. And for this Yankee, I was very surprised at how segregated an area still was. And I was like, all of a sudden, I felt like I was the poor white kid again, dealing with donors who had just so much opulence. And I'm just so grateful that his mentorship over me
Wow.
really gave me the chutzpah that I needed. And so, I spent 18 years being willing to color outside the lines, running a faith-based nonprofit. I loved Jesus, but I was a smart cookie, and I knew how to do operations, and I knew how to manage finance as well. I'm grateful that the senior pastor who hired me in Connecticut always used to say, Renee, a church should run a business better than a business, not as good as, because this is God's money and we need to steward it well. And we need to give a good ROI on the people who are investing in us.
Yeah, good.
And what a great way to think. And so, like, looking at measurable outcomes and strategic goals and balancing the budget is just something I was just able to do. And this nonprofit was super tiny. It was in a lot of debt. And they were like, wait, we're going to do strategic goals and outcomes and job reviews. And I'm like, yeah, we are. and I think people who might be listening to this, when you are running an organization, man, it is not for the faint of heart. It was the biggest blessing of my life. But when you are on top, you're either on the pedestal and people think you're amazing. And then in that moment, you think, oh, I don't care what people think about me. Like, I'm good. And then until people don't like you and they knock you off that pedestal, then you realize how much you still care about what other people think.
Wow.
And I'm thankful there were some senior pastors in the community who really mentored me and just said, Renee, accept the 10%. If somebody's critiquing you, 10% of it's probably true.
Wow.
No matter how bad it was said, no matter who it's coming from, 10% is probably true. Own it, work on it, and throw out the 90% that doesn't feel right. And so it has allowed me to handle critique from the nastiest person.
Wow.
And own it. So I feel like what you're hearing me say, hopefully through all of this, is people mentored me in every area of my life. I've been mentored. And so when God called me out of running Hope Clinic, and it was really after a season of, not only did I get to check off every initial goal that I had, but then I had like a wish list goal, and I got to check off that. And I got to do that after a pandemic, like, who thought that was going to happen? And, so I gave like a 4-month notice, which in nonprofit land is a pretty typical amount of time. And people kept asking me, what are you doing next? I'm like, I don't know. I'm sleeping for like 3 months. That's what I'm doing. Because I did not master boundaries. I'm not going to lie. When you are single and running a nonprofit, it is easy to let everyone else's family come first. And so I definitely had to do some grieving and healing and rest. But I knew that whatever next looked like, I wanted to take all the things I do best and give it away.
Yeah.
So, now I'm at a season where I'm focused on helping. I think my designer helped me come up with my title. I'm a builder of people, teams, and businesses. And that can be very operational. I mean, I'm a trained CFO and COO, but I'm also like a writer and a speaker and touchy-feely, and I've done all sorts of training on that side. And so I love the idea that no matter who I'm working with, it could be personal, it could be spiritual, or it can be just structural and like literal. And so right now I've already got a few clients that are giving me some work to do. I've got a couple speaking gigs coming up. I'm trying to finish my book. And so I'm actually working with a coach. Every coach and mentor needs a coach and mentor, right? So I'm not done being mentored by any means, but my heart is really for young men and women who anywhere from teenage years, really beyond, that still feels like they want to grow and learn. And I have learned just even in the last 3 months, in some ways, it's going to look exactly like I thought it would. In other ways, it's going to look nothing like it. And there's such freedom being open-handed. And, I'm at a place in my life where I feel like I am more me than
Yeah.
I've ever been, but it's less less alpha. I don't know if that's the right word, because when you're a single woman kind of making it big in a career, you can kind of give off a pretty strong masculine side, right? Like, we're not just assertive, we're aggressive. We're not just bold, we're a bitch. And so it's like, and you have to really kind of fight. Sorry about that. Like you're going to really kind of fight that. And so stepping away from leadership has really allowed me to actually not be less, but be more, but more me, not trying so hard. And
Yeah.
so I know that I'm not for everybody. Some people are going to like me and some people aren't. And I will put my time and energy into the people that want to grow with me. I love Brene Brown. I'm very much, if you want to get in the arena with me, I will handle your critique, but if you're going to stay up in the bleachers, I probably don't want to do life with you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this life is meant to be lived boldly, courageously. I would rather be the person who fails a ton and gets it right a few times than the person who never tries. So that was a lot. I just
I
threw
love
on you.
it. You're such a natural. And I got goosebumps a few times as you were talking. Just so many good nuggets. I love your backstory and just hearing the couple of people that poured into you that made a difference. Maybe not at the time you didn't realize it, but looking back, you're like, whoa, that was life altering, right? And that inspires me to want to be that for others, not just my kids, but strangers and who knows, right? So I love that. And I feel like what you're doing now, you get to pick and choose and have fun doing it and do whatever you want to do, right? Which is the best.
Yeah.
Grind
One of
it,
one of the compliments that my coach said to me, he goes, Renee, you have this uncanny ability to show up and allow other people to show up wholly and be themselves. And you create safe space to do that. And I don't take that lightly. I honor that sacred space. I've had donors, I've had heads of foundations, I've had people in Congress like share the most intimate, painful thing with me. And it's not because I'm a therapist at all, but because, as a Cody, I want to fix it, but I can't. But I think it's just because I show up and I say, it's okay. Like you can say the most awful thing that you're thinking or feeling, and this is safe space. And if we could all just do that more and kind of believe that even when someone's being horrible to us, it might be the very best they have to give that day. Like I have met very few clinically awful people in the world. Most people are just hurt or broken. And if they're not healed, they're going to operate from a broken and wounded place. And that doesn't give them license to keep doing it, but it does change your perspective on how you receive that and how you react to it.
Absolutely. Yes. Perfect. Perfectly well said. Tell us about your book. I want to hear more.
So I know I've been talking about writing a book for 20 years. Really, my friends are getting really sick of hearing about it. So the main goal that my coach has for me is giving me manageable bites to get it done. And I'm actually going to be doing an 8-week series teaching it at my church in August. So it has to get done by August.
I love it.
And so I was inspired by it when I was on staff at the church in Connecticut. So this is going back 20 years. And as much faith as I have, I'm a big feeler and I feel happy big, but it also means I feel sad big.
Yeah.
I've had a therapist describe it as the pendulum swings evenly in both directions. So if you are not a super emotional person, your pendulum swings a little shallow, and that's okay. And you probably present really even keeled. And I love being around those people because I'm not that at all, but they are a calm for me. But I'm either really big happy or really big unhappy. And for personal reasons, I was in a really big unhappy place in my life personally, and I didn't have a safe place to process it or unpack it in the church culture. And so the title that came to me is All You Need Is a Mustard Seed, subtitle Between Hope and Despair. And just this idea of you just need a mustard seed size of hope today. That's it.
Yeah.
Because scripture tells us that you can move a mountain with a mustard seed. And if you've ever looked at a mustard seed, it is like the tiniest little seed.
Yeah.
And so that kind of has weaved all through my life. And it's funny that I worked at a place called Hope Clinic, and everyone's like, oh, that's why you're naming your book after hope. I'm like, it's really not. And so I've already finished 2 chapters, and one of them is hope doesn't have to look happy and hope is not in a hurry. That's the other
Wow.
chapter. And so just this, and I really wanted to appeal to somebody in a church culture who doesn't feel safe to talk about sadness. And I wanted to appeal to the person who's not in a church culture. So I'm pulling things from the book of Job, but I'm pulling things like from Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Because I always love the dichotomy of Andy's hope and Red's like despair. And in that final moment, that final scene, they actually shot that after it went to the people to review it. Cause like the final scene is him kind of getting on the bus, and you don't see anything else after that. And after they did a test pilot of it, people were like, no, they have to reunite. And so to me, that final reuniting moment at the end of the movie is he got hope. He got hope that big. And so I want to be able to help people find hope that big, even though it looks that small.
I love it, Renee. I'm so grateful God brought you in my life. And you're such an inspiration, total powerhouse. I love who you are. You've spoken into me and just been there and listened, and I'm grateful for you. So I'm going to put a link to your website, reach out. Again, you got a lot going, but it's just so awesome to see you do what you love, and you're just shining. So keep going, girl.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it.
Yay. All right. Well, thanks for being on, and thanks everyone for listening. Have a great day.
Bye.